Would you like more stable and predictable income as part of your online course business? And would you like to hear how some big earner course creators, as well as those who are just getting started, are adding additional revenue to their course business each month? Well, today's special guest will show you exactly how you can do that, so stay tuned for that, as well as some tips on what to do with your hands on camera and my recommended tool to help you make genuine connections on social media without it taking up all of your time. Welcome to the Recognized Expert Show. I'm Demelza and I'm here to help you go from the unheard course creator to the recognized expert in your space. So if you're an online course creator wanting to increase your impact, influence, and income, you are in the right place. Let's get started. If you're watching this live, then please hit the like button and say hi in the comments. And if you're watching the replay, then it would be really great to hear from you too. I will actually be in the comments to interact with you while we're live, so hopefully I will see you in the chat. Now today I'm going to be talking with Stu McLaren on the topic of recurring revenue through membership sites, which is a great addition to a course business, either as a lower cost option for any of your audience or as a back end to your course to help your students implement what they have learned in your course. Now, Stu McLaren is the membership guy, and over the last 12 years, he has worked with tens of thousands of membership site owners. He's also former co-founder of Wishlist Member, which is a leading membership site platform on WordPress. And he has been instrumental in helping the big name entrepreneurs add additional income via memberships, as well as complete unknowns with no business at all, establish significant recurring revenue. Hey Stu, thank you so much for joining us today. And I'm super excited to dive into this topic of memberships because I think it's so valuable for us as course creators to be adding this to our course business. So maybe you could just tell us a little bit about how you got into all of this, and then we can explore more about how this can help us as course creators with our business.
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here. And course creators are 100% one of my favorite audiences to help and serve, because memberships and courses, they go together like peanut butter and chocolate. Like they're the perfect marriage. You know, it's not one or the other. They're like together. Yeah. But how I got into memberships really takes back all the way back to 2008. At the time, I had a successful consulting business, and we were growing the business. Well, I say we. It was predominantly me at the time, myself and an assistant. But what was happening was that I was burning the candle at both ends. You know, I was working early in the morning, late at night. Mm-hmm. I had just gotten married, and my wife and I, Amy, were talking about starting our family. And I realized, like, I was not going to be able to be a present husband and father if I still had the business model that I was running at the time. And then the other thing I realized was, like, the only way to grow that business was to give more of my time, and I didn't have any more to give. So something had to change. Mm-hmm. And so I was talking to a variety of friends and mentors about this. And one of my mentors, he said, Stu, you should really start a membership site and teach people what it is that you're doing for your clients. He said, that way you can teach once and serve a whole lot of people. And there's no limit to how much you can scale and grow that. So I was like, man, that sounds awesome. This was back in 2008. And I'm like, sweet. Okay, I'm in. So then I start like digging into it. But back then the technology was not what it is today. And before I know it, I'm like getting caught up in things like HT access files and server settings. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is like way over my head. And I was moaning and groaning to a friend of mine, Tracy. And I said, dude, I just want to teach. Like, I don't want to get stuck in all the stuff. I just want to teach. And he said, well, what would you do if you had like a magic wand and you could just like create the perfect solution? And I said, well, I would do this and I would do that and I'd do this and I'd do that. And he said, so why don't you just create it? And I almost felt like, I'm like, dude, hello? Like, do you hear me? Like, I'm just sitting here talking about all the tech challenges I'm having. I can't go and, build something. And he said, well, why don't we work together? He said, because I've got a developer that I've been working with for years. He's great. And maybe we can create something together. So we did. And it went on to become the world's #1 membership platform for WordPress. We went on to power tens of thousands of membership sites. When I sold my shares in the company, we were powering over 70,000 online communities and memberships. And so that's where, being behind the scenes, I learned a lot of like what works and what doesn't. Because every year we would see thousands and thousands of membership sites who would launch, and then they'd kind of plateau or kind of level off. But then we'd also see this small group of sites that were growing year over year over year. And I was like, well, what are they doing? Like, what are they doing differently that everybody else is not? And that's what I started paying attention to. And we started to discover they do things differently in terms of the way they position their memberships, the way they market their memberships, the way they deliver content in their memberships, the way they retain their members. And that's where I started to really understand what makes a successful membership site. So then I took those practices. I started creating membership sites of my own that went on to do 6 and 7 figures. And then people started asking, like, how are you doing that? And so I started teaching it eventually in 2015 in small workshops. That led to eventually our signature program, Tribe, which now we've helped tens of thousands of people launch memberships in all kinds of different markets. So that's kind of where it all started with just scratching my own itch, so to speak. And along the way, I discovered and learned a lot from helping tens of thousands of membership site owners. And now I get the honor and pleasure of being able to share it through our signature program.
That's amazing. I think it's important, as you said, when you have a problem to solve yourself, that's often a great start to actually coming up with a solution, which can then help other people who are also struggling with that same problem, right?
Yeah. And I mean, like, we can all relate to it as course creators. Like, a lot of the times what we're sharing is our own experience, our own knowledge, the skills that we've gained. And in this scenario is very much the same way where, I had a problem, an issue. I wanted to create a membership site. We ended up creating a solution. Along the way, I learned a whole bunch of stuff. And now I get to share it with tens of thousands of people every year.
That's great. So as a course creator, what would you recommend in terms of a membership? Because obviously we are thinking about creating courses. So how would a membership fit into that kind of business model?
Yeah, well, it's a great question. I think first and foremost, you just have to get clear on the purpose of the membership. And as it relates to courses, I'd encourage you to think about there being really 2 options. Like, it could be a front-end membership. And the purpose of a front-end membership is to attract a much wider audience that would then be perfectly suited for your course, right? Those are the people that want to go deeper and do a deep dive on that subject matter. So a front-end membership is a great way to introduce what it is that you do and what you teach to a whole lot more people. And it's a much easier price point for people to come into the door, so to speak, which then makes perfect segue for a course option is what we'd call a back-end membership. And this is really where, after somebody comes through your course and they learn what to do and how to do it, now the back-end membership kind of takes over at the end of the course in supporting people and actually implementing what it is that they're teaching. And so we see this a lot. And this is a huge home run win because inevitably, and I'm sure your audience can relate, when somebody comes to the end of the course, naturally people ask, like, well, what next? Like, well, what's going to happen to the community? Like, well, wait a minute. Like, where do I go for extra support and help? And that's where a back-end membership really comes into play.
I think also as well, people, and especially since COVID, people really appreciate community. And that idea of being able to be in a membership with other people who are like-minded, working on the same projects, is really important. And it also caters to those people who need that kind of extra motivation, because a course is often self-motivated. You have to work yourself up to go through the entire course and that kind of thing. Whereas a membership gives the motivation from other people, and some people need that extra input. And by having the course and the membership, you're catering to both kinds of people, which means you're serving more people. And obviously you've got the extra revenue as well.
100%. And I think too, like, the reality of the situation when you're teaching anybody anything in a course is that they're downloading a lot of information in a very short period of time, right? Right. And so it's really hard to go from not knowing how to paint to becoming the next Picasso like that through a course, or like not knowing how to play the guitar to becoming the next Eric Clapton like that, through a course. Like, yes, we're going to learn what to do and how to do it, but mastering those skills, that takes time. And that's where a membership, like I said, is a natural, perfect fit for any course creator. And it's the way in which you can best serve and help your people. And make no mistake, this is not about like teaching a whole bunch of stuff in the membership. No. It's really about supporting people in the implementation of what they've learned from you in the course and supporting them on the journey of actually mastering those skills. So, there's definitely some nuances in how to structure what it is that you do in a membership. But most importantly, for a back-end membership, I would encourage you to really lean on what you've already created with a course. Now it's just about creating that space to be able to support people in the implementation of it. And as you said, when we're on a journey, it's way more fun and we accomplish way more when we're on that journey with others who are also on the journey.
Right, exactly. And also, I just think as well, the fear of being on the content treadmill is something I think will put a lot of people off a membership idea. But what you're saying is it's not about more and more content. It's about helping people implement the content that you've already shared. And I think that's really important for people to recognize, because it can be pretty intimidating with the idea of I've got to create monthly content on a regular basis. I don't want to get into any of that.
Yeah, and I would say this 100% is one of the biggest misunderstandings as it relates to membership sites. And that is that the natural inclination for those of us who are content creators and teachers is we naturally think, oh, the more I give, the more value I create. But that's actually not true. And in fact, the number one reason that people cancel from a membership is overwhelm. It's not that they don't have enough, it's that they have too much and they don't have the space and the capacity to be able to implement what it is that they've learned. So a membership site is a little bit different. A membership site is about people learning and doing and having the space to do both. They got to be able to learn a little bit and they got to be able to do a lot more, because where the long-term success of a membership comes into play for you and I is in keeping people happy. And as long as people are happy, they're going to continue to stay. And if they continue to stay, the business continues to grow. But if we have members who come in and then they get overwhelmed and then they bounce out, that doesn't do anybody any good. And so the focus for you and I is always the same. The focus is helping people make progress, period, full stop. And sometimes that's going to mean them like making baby steps toward the goals. Sometimes it's them making giant leaps. But as long as they're making forward progress, they will stay. And in all my years of literally helping tens of thousands of business owners implement a membership, I've never heard of anybody canceling a membership because they're experiencing too much success. Right? Like that just doesn't happen. So as long as you and I are focused on helping people make progress, then they're going to stay. And what that boils down to is creating space both to learn, but more importantly, to implement what we've learned so that people don't get stuck in that cycle of learning, never doing anything, therefore never making any progress, and them feeling overwhelmed by volume of content. Keep it tight, keep it short, and focus on helping people make progress.
That's amazing. And what would you say would be the difference between the front end and the back end membership in that regard? Because I'm assuming that was more back end. Is it the same for front end, or would it be slightly different?
It's a great question. So with a front end, you are doing a little more teaching, but in the same regards, you're not wanting to overwhelm people. So I can give you some general rules of thumb. And again, there are some nuances to this because it really will depend on what type of membership you're looking to create. There are different types. Not all memberships are created equal. But for a general rule of thumb is that you don't want to provide any more than an hour of content per week. Because if you get beyond 60 minutes of content, what happens is now people spend more time learning, less time doing. And again, we fall into that trap of them not making any progress. And that begins to start the problem of them getting overwhelmed and leaving, etc. So you really got to strike that balance. And trust me, it's hard because as content creators and teachers, like we want to teach everything and we want to get it to them all at once, but we got to have patience so that our people have the space to be able to implement what they're learning. So a front end membership is generally, you are going to be doing a little more teaching, but it's about pulling way back. Like it's a totally different experience than it is for a course. A course, we're full on, and it's an intense, whether it be for 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 10 weeks, whatever the course length is. And we're teaching everything that we got in that period of time. A membership, we got to slow right down. And the focus isn't so much on teaching, it's that balance of teaching and implementation. And so front-end memberships, generally, another distinction is that they're generally a lower price point because as we talked about, we're using it as a way to welcome more people into our audience. It's a lower barrier of entry, which gives us the opportunity to help people make progress. And inevitably, as a result of that, people are going to want to go deeper and do a deep dive. Like, I'll give you an example. So, right now I'm in the midst of remodeling my home office, and I'm wanting to create a home office where I can come in, I can flip a couple switches and the lights are perfect, the camera's ready to go, and I don't have to think about it, right? And I want to have like a nice set behind me and stuff like that. But I mean, I don't really know anything about like set design and all this kind of stuff. I'm a hack job at best, and so I was watching a whole bunch of free YouTube videos and I was getting ideas and stuff like that. But then I got to a point where I had watched so many videos and I'm just like, okay, yeah, but like, what do I actually do? Like, how do I kind of bring all these ideas together? Like, I just need somebody to just kind of like map it out for me. And so I went on to Facebook in one of our groups and I said, like, I'm stuck. Like, has anybody got like any thoughts on this or somebody I could talk to? And sure enough, there was a recommendation to go to livestreamingpros.com. So I go to Live Streaming Pros and what do you know? They got a membership. I'm like, hot diggity dog. I'm like, I'm in. So I sign up for the membership. And sure enough, they begin breaking it down where it's like set design and equipment and, what are your purposes and planning and all this kind of stuff. And finally, I had somebody mapping it out for me to make it easier for me to understand how to move forward. And that's the key. And so the bottom line is that like with a front end membership, it's about introducing concepts to people and it's striking that balance of both teaching and certainly helping people in, implementing. But you, again, don't want to overwhelm people. Keep the amount of content to a much smaller amount, maybe maximum 60 minutes per week. With a back-end membership, it's often even less teaching. And the ironic thing is you can generally charge a much higher price point because after somebody comes through the course experience, they see the value in what it is that you're teaching and want to work with you. And so for them now, they understand the value. They don't need to be sold on that. What they just need support is in implementation and getting the results. So funny enough, when I joined this Live Streaming Pros website, what inevitably happened? Inevitably, I wanted to go deeper because I want to go faster. And so I asked and when I inquired about that. And so this is the natural thing that happens with memberships, whether it be a front end membership as a way to introduce people. There are going to be those that want to go faster. That's perfect for a course and or any high level coaching or consulting. And then similarly with a back-end membership, the value's already there because people understand it after coming through a course experience. So they're generally the price points are much higher and it's actually even, less content and more support and peer instruction, et cetera, et cetera.
Great. And I guess one question that comes up in my mind is, let's say you've got a course on whatever topic. What should your membership be on? Should it be exactly the same topic or should it be slightly different? Because if you're teaching the same thing that's in the course, why would anyone go deeper?
It 100% should be the exact same topic because it's not about teaching anything different. Remember, a back end is about supporting people in implementing what they've learned. So think about it this way. Think about, I go through and I take a course on karate as an example. Okay. So I'm watching these videos on karate. I'm watching all these different techniques of punching and kicking and all the things. But does that mean that I have mastered those skills? Does that mean like, because I've gone through the course material, I can go and immediately get my black belt? No, no, because mastery comes from implementing and practicing. And it's not that I'm implementing anything new or I'm practicing anything new. I'm implementing and practicing what I've learned, but I'm just getting better and better and better at the implementation side of it. The same is true for all of our courses. I'll give you an example. So Nicholas Wilton, he teaches art, fine art. He's an artist. He sells his art. This is how he's made his living, for many, many years. And so he has a course, and it's a 12-week course. So it's a long course.
Yeah.
And he contacted me. This was years ago, and he was on week number 10 of this course. And he said, Stu, like, I'm getting toward the end of this, and a lot of people are asking me, what happens next? Like, because they were recognizing they were coming toward the end of the course. And this, when you teach, is typically where people start to have that fear and almost that panic, which is like, well, wait a minute, like, what am I going to do when we're outside of our course bubble? Like, who's going to take care of me? Like, I haven't implemented all the things. I've learned it, but I need help in walking me through it and holding my hand through it. And so the same was true with Nicholas, and inevitably, and we can unpack like how he did this, but he ended up launching a membership site, and the focus of the membership is not teaching any new techniques or art or anything of that nature. It's really about the mastery of the skills. And this is where you hold people accountable to implement what it is that they've learned. And this is where you support them in that implementation. Because inevitably, as people start putting what they're learning into practice, questions are going to come up. And you and I know as teachers, if somebody's got a question that they're stuck on, that's going to prevent them from making progress. So the goal for you and I is to eliminate the friction in helping people implement what it is that they've learned. So the topic would be the exact same. The focus is not about teaching new stuff. It's about supporting people in what they've already learned.
And would the same apply for a front-end membership, getting people into your course as well?
Yes, for sure. Because again, the purpose of a front-end membership is to introduce people to what it is that we do. And inevitably, a percentage of them are going to want to go deeper and they're going to want to go faster. And that's what perfectly that's why a course is a perfect fit as a back end to a front end membership. So they go together so well, whether the membership is introducing people into a course or whether a membership is supporting people who have gone through a course. They're different types of memberships, but you can see why they go so well together with any type of course that we may be creating.
Okay, so I have an overachiever question.
Okay.
Would it make sense to have a front end and a back end, or is that just overdoing it?
Well, this is a great overachiever question. And I would say in the beginning, just focus on one. Just focus on one membership. But it's not to say that you can't have two. And there are many people in our community who have done that very thing. So they have a low dollar front end membership, which gives them a great way to introduce more and more people to their world. And then that naturally leads to courses. And then they have created a higher price point membership, which is for people that have gone through the course. But the key thing here is that the back-end membership is not sold to anybody other than those coming through the course. So it's not open to the general public. The people will have had to have gone through the course. So then that way, when for the back-end membership, you're not introducing people to concepts. You're really hitting the ground running, and people have a full understanding of what it is you're talking about. They have a baseline knowledge. They understand the language and the lingo. And so you alleviate a lot of those, introductory type questions that often come up when people are unfamiliar and coming in for the first time. And it allows you to go deeper and deeper and deeper into the material, and therefore develop a higher and higher level of mastery with your members in terms of what they're learning.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. And another thing you were saying was your courses were in the line of maybe like a live course, like a 10-week live course. What about those who are doing, like it's not a live course, it's just a course that they can take in their own time? How would you get people from that kind of automated course that's totally behind the scenes to a membership which is a lot more hands-on and community-based?
Well, it would be the same. The process is the same. The difference with a live course versus an evergreen course is that with a live course, there's obviously a lot more energy, and it's an experience that people are going through together. And so that makes a perfect segue when the course is coming to a closure, because you can have like the way in which we do it is we have a closing ceremonies, and the closing ceremonies we look back and we celebrate all the progress that everybody has had during the course itself. And we highlight and spotlight the wins that have been posted in the community during that course experience. And we really showcase and celebrate our course, customers. And then we ask a simple question. And the question is this: look at all of the progress that has happened during the last 10 weeks. Imagine how much progress we could make as a group if we stayed together, not for weeks, but for the next year. So look at what's happened during the last several weeks and imagine what's possible if we were in that same environment for the next year. And it's very easy to create that contrast where people are like, oh my gosh, like, look at all the wins that have already happened during the weeks. I don't want to lose this connection. I don't want to miss out on that. Like, I want to be in this, in this bubble, so to speak, where I can go deeper and deeper and deeper. And so it makes a natural segue. So we often see, conversion rates of 35, 40, 50, 60, 70% of course takers then continuing on to the membership. Now, if it's an evergreen, you have to structure it a little bit differently because because different people are going to be going through that experience at different times. But the messaging is the same. And as long as the experience that they're having on an evergreen is focused on helping them make progress in what it is that they're doing, then you can reflect back on them, all that they have learned and the progress that they've made. And then, look at the future in terms of what would be possible if they stayed in that environment, continued to have support, and be able to access the collective wisdom of so many others who are on that same journey as they are. That's the true power of a membership, is being able to not only tap into your wisdom, my wisdom as teachers, so to speak, but also the collective wisdom and experience of those who are on the same journey, Right. And what I know to be true is like, I certainly have ideas as it relates to my area of expertise, which is about memberships. But I can tell you, I have a lot more ideas every year that come from what our community are sharing with me and how they're implementing it, and the different angles that they take, and the way in which they approach this and the way in which they approach that. Like, some of the biggest and best ideas from the past 12 months have all come from our audience. And that's the power of being in a community with people who are on that same journey. So however, whether it's an evergreen or live experience, it's really about identifying what is going to be possible for people if they stay in that environment all year long and continue to go deeper and deeper in mastering the skills that you've taught them in the course.
So for those who are doing evergreen courses, would you recommend recommending the membership at the beginning of the course? Because obviously a lot of people don't actually finish the courses because they don't have that accountability. They don't have that external motivation. So if we leave it to the end of the course to mention it, they might not even know about the membership. So would you recommend mentioning it at the beginning, or would you recommend sending out emails after a few weeks just to kind of share with them about the membership? How would you go about that?
Yeah, great question. I think it really depends on how you've got the evergreen course experience structured. Like, if there's no community and it's just straight up lessons, then the introduction of a community component could be very appealing, to people who are going through that. So if you don't have a community in your evergreen course, introducing a community earlier on that's part of a membership, might be wise. But my only hesitation in introducing it too early is that you don't want people feeling like they've just bought something and then you are turning around and offering something in addition, because what you want people to feel good about what they've just purchased. And what I know to be true is that the reason we see really high conversion rates from people coming through our course who then join our membership is because we really put our head down and focus on creating an experience to maximize that experience with what they just bought. So if you're finding that people aren't completing your lessons and going through your course, I'd start there first, because it's really hard to make a sale for something new when your customer hasn't felt like they've got the, what they came for out of what they just purchased, right? So I would just really encourage any evergreen course business owners to really focus on like the experience, because the bottom line, here's what I know, it was true with both courses and memberships. If people experience progress, again, doesn't matter whether it's small wins, big wins, and everything in between, then as long as they're experiencing progress, they're going to want to continue doing business with you. Like, that is a natural thing that they want. So my obsession and our obsession as a company is like, how do we help people implement this stuff? Like, we have a course, it's our signature program. We obsess over it. Like, it is an obsession. And so every year what happens is we finish the program and we don't have hundreds, we have thousands of people who have launched memberships. And those are the stories that we are striving for as a company. And we want new stories every single year, because that keeps us obsessed on the course experience, so that people are moving through it, that they're consuming the content, they're using the content, they're getting results with the content. And that naturally segues to people wanting to join us for the membership. So don't think that the membership is going to be a solution for a problem that you're experiencing in terms of the course. I don't want that to be mistaken. Make sure that the course experience nails the course experience, and it will naturally, lead to people wanting to join you for the membership. And so, I think it really depends. So, in general, I wouldn't introduce it right from the get-go. I'd wait until at least the midpoint, and really focus on getting people deep into the course content, using the course content, et cetera, and then introduce the membership afterwards.
That's really helpful. So what would you say is the next step that someone should take after hearing everything you've just shared? What would be, the next step that's, if for somebody who doesn't have a membership and maybe has a course, maybe doesn't have a course, what would be their next step?
Well, first things first, I would get clear on, do you envision this being a front-end membership or a back-end membership? Like, that right there is going to determine a lot of the direction that you're going to take. That'll determine, like, what content you're going to provide. That'll determine how you're going to market it. That'll determine, certainly retention strategies. So that one decision certainly will give you clarity in terms of your next steps beyond that point in terms of what type of membership. But if you're also just wanting to gauge whether your market would be interested and you got people coming through a course, I would do what Nicholas Wilton did. So, like, as an example, we were talking about Nicholas Wilton. So let me tell you how he eventually launched his membership. So it was week 10 of this course, and he had 2 more weeks to go. And he said, Stu, like, I know that our people want, community after this, but I don't have time. Like, I don't have time to create a membership in the next 2 weeks before people finish it. I said, dude, no worries. I'm like, you're going to do a founding member launch. And he's like, well, what's that? And I said, well, you're not going to have a membership site created, but you're going to introduce the idea to all of the people coming through the course. You're going to cast the vision for where you see this community and membership going. You're going to invite them to join you as a founding member. And as part of that, they're going to get a discounted rate as a founding member. And so when you do launch this to the general public, even though the price will go up, their price will stay the same. And then I said, and then you're going to give them a simple call to action, which is, click this link or go to this checkout page or whatever it might be. And then you're going to follow up with people accordingly. And so he invited all of the people that were coming through his course to a webinar, which was his closing ceremony. And then he said, as we were going through this course experience, I started to get comments like this as we got toward the end. And he would show screenshots of like, hey, what's going to happen to the community when we're done? Wait, where am I going to go to get support? Like, all of those types of questions. And he showed screenshots of those. And he said, and it got me thinking, like, what could we create where we could stay together and we could go deeper and deeper in terms of what we're learning? And it created the idea that maybe we could create an ongoing component to the name of his course. And he said, so that's what gets me excited, because as soon as I started thinking about that, I started seeing what this could become. And then he started painting the picture of what that membership might look like. But then he was very clear in saying that now none of this has been created. Right now, it's just a very raw, fresh idea. But I want to invite you to come and join me as a founding member. And in exchange, what I would do is extend to you the absolute lowest price that you will have locked in, even when we do raise the price for the general public down the road. But your price will stay the same because you are a founding member. And not only that, by getting in on the ground floor, I want you to help shape what this community will end up becoming. And so he invited them and involved them, and then he gave them a clear call to action. Now, the amazing part about this, he had roughly 200 at the time, roughly 200 so people coming through the course. He had over 180 of them sign up and join him as founding members. He generated $5,400 a month in recurring revenue from people who were coming through the course. Now, fast forward, we're, I think, 2.5 years from that point. He's got thousands of members in there who were all people, again, who have come through his course, who have naturally joined him for the membership after the fact. So I share this with you because we can overcomplicate it. We can overthink it. But you can do a natural next step of a founding member launch, which is those 5 steps. Number 1, you tell people where the idea came from. And it might even be, hey, I heard this crazy Canadian talking about, how powerful a membership experience can be for people coming through a course because it enables them to go deeper and deeper in learning and mastering the skills. And I thought, oh my gosh, that's exactly what would be amazing for you, our people coming through this course. So where did the idea come from? Number 2, cast the vision. Where do you see this becoming? Or what do you see this becoming? And you really want to talk about not what it's going to do for you, but what it's going to do for them. And I'll tell you, I'll give you some hints. Like what it's going to do for them is that it's going to give them a supportive environment to not only learn, what to do and how to do it, but most importantly, to get results with what they have learned. It's about supporting them in the implementation. It bridges the gap between knowing what to do and actually doing it. And that's where most people get stuck. And you're not in this. I'm not in this to teach a bunch of stuff and then see ya, peace out. No, we're in it because we are committed to the people that we're serving and we want to help them get results. That's what a membership enables you to do and them to do, which is to get more results. And that's what we're all after. And that's ultimately the vision is, supporting them and getting those results easier and faster after they know what to do and how to do it. And then you want to invite them to join you as a founding member. And as I said, the big benefit is founding member, pricing, and that they'll be locked in at that price for as long as they remain a member in good standing. And they'll also have a real hand and voice in helping shape the direction. Because the other side of this is that never in all of my years in doing this have I ever seen a membership that has been launched that is still the exact same membership 3 months, 6 months, 12 months down the road. Because inevitably, every single membership site is going to make changes. And you make those changes based on, what your members are asking for and observing, like where are they getting stuck and what things should change. So a membership, it's always going to be changing based on your members' needs. But slowly but surely, you end up getting it really dialed in to a process that gets people results. So invite them to join you because they'll get the founding member pricing. They'll also have a voice in shaping the direction of that. And then give them a clear call to action. Like, what do you want them to do? Do you want them to click a link? Do you want them to send you a direct message? What do you want them to do? And then finally, the 5th step is to follow up with those that have expressed interest, honor them, thank them, and welcome them as founding members, and then begin involving them as you create the membership. So to pull it all together, this is exactly what Nicholas Wilton did. On that webinar, he invited them to join as founding members. He didn't have a big fancy sales page, nothing. He had a checkout page. They clicked the checkout page, they checked out, and then he didn't have a membership because he was clear, like he didn't have anything created yet. And it was a simple thank you page. Then he put everybody into a Facebook group initially, and that's where the communication began. And he kept them informed of the membership that they were creating. And he would show them screenshots and it being created. And he would ask for feedback and what are they looking for? And over a 2-month period, they created the membership and then eventually launched. But he had launched to the public after the fact. But during that time, he had generated over $10,000 in recurring revenue because $5,400 in month 1, $5,400 a month too, which therefore paid for the costs, and many times they're over, to create the membership and involve everybody in the process. And he gained a ton of momentum. And this is really what it's about. And then a founding member launch, to me, doesn't matter if you have 5 members, 10 members, 20 members, 100 members join. The most important thing in the beginning is that you have real people you can work with who are going to help shape the direction of that, and real stories of people who are making progress. Those are your most powerful marketing asset from that point forward. So bottom line, next steps, I would start, get clear on front end or back end membership. And then I'd encourage you to do a founding member launch using those 5 steps. Share where the idea came from, cast the vision, invite, a call to action, and follow up.
That is amazing. So that gives us really clear direction. Really, thank you for that. And also for those of you who are watching as this comes out, I really encourage you to go and check out the workshops that you're doing, because you're doing some workshops coming up in just a very short time, really. So do you want to say a bit more about that?
Yeah, listen, as you can probably tell, I'm a wee bit passionate about this stuff. And the reason is because, look, if the last year has taught us anything, it's that we just never know what's going to happen. But what I do know is that people who have stable recurring revenue in their business experience far less stress and experience far more growth because of that stability and predictability in the business. And listen, I am very empathetic and to all of the business owners whose worlds have been turned upside down in the past year. And I have a dear friend who owns a restaurant, as an example. Like, his restaurant's open, then it's closed, then it's open, then it's closed. Like, I don't know how he's been able to do it. And in fact, my friend who's in my wedding party, he had to go get a second job this year because of all of this craziness. Or people who own retail stores, or we have a friend who owns a brewery. Like, same thing. The worlds have been turned upside down because of what's happened. But the other side of the coin is, like, some of the best messages that I have received during the last 12 months have been from business owners whose world would have been turned upside down, but it wasn't, because they had a membership. I'm thinking about Casey Hope, who she owns a brick and mortar art studio, but she also had a membership that teaches people calligraphy. And she sent me a message right when the pandemic hit and said, Stu, I'm just so grateful because, I don't know how long our art studio is going to be shut down, but I don't have the fear that I would have had because I'm still able to pay our staff. I'm still able to pay ourselves. And this past year has actually been Casey's best year ever with her membership. And then not only that, but she launched a second membership because a month into COVID, she realized, like, oh my gosh, there are millions of parents who are right now at home trying to homeschool their kids and not knowing what the heck to do. And she's like, we help kids when they come into the art studio. We teach them art. Like, we could create a membership. That's exactly what she did. She created a second membership. She launched it using the founding member launch, just like we talked about. She now has more than 500 plus members in that second membership. So I share this with you because it demonstrates what's possible. And I'm passionate about this because as entrepreneurs, we pour so much into our businesses and we just never know what's going to happen. But I know with certainty that when you've got that predictability and stability of recurring revenue, it changes the game forever. This is why we're so passionate about sharing this. This is why I want to encourage everybody watching and listening to come and join us on April 22nd, because on April 22nd, that marks the beginning of a free workshop. And we host this workshop one time a year. It's all free. And last year, we saw more people launch their memberships during the free workshop with what we're teaching than ever before. And that's why I want to encourage you to come. I want you to encourage you to show up live and really experience it. I want you to come and hear the stories of so many others in all kinds of different markets, from photography, calligraphy, to fitness and finance and music, art, health, and dog training, you name it. There's pretty much every market you can think of, and you'll hear stories. You'll be inspired. Your creative juices will be flowing, and you'll see very quickly how to take what you're already doing in your courses and add a natural next step that will add predictability and stability in your business. And most importantly, help your people get better results with what it is that you're teaching. So come and join us April 22nd. I'm sure you're going to hook them up with the link, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so obviously, as we go on with this show, I will refer you to the link below, but you can check that out and definitely go and come to this workshop because it is amazing. I can testify to having been there last year and just seeing the energy and the enthusiasm and the motivation just to do this. It's amazing.
Yeah, it is. And it's the most fun time for me of the year because this is where, people's minds get opened to what's possible and what that would then make possible for not only them and their families and so forth, but for the people that they're serving.
Right.
And I think as course creators, like I said earlier, at the end of the day, we're in it to help people get results with what it is that we're teaching. And this is why a membership is like a natural next step. And I can't wait for everybody to come and see how that's made possible during our free workshop. So come, mark it down on the calendar, April 22nd. I'll see you there.
So what did you think of that interview? I mean, I just love Stu's energy and his passion for memberships because he knows the difference that it can make in people's lives, as he already shared. And it's hard for me to pick my biggest takeaway, but I think probably it would be, for me at least, the idea that the membership should be on the same topic as your course. So I think it can be tempting sometimes to think that a front-end membership should lead into the course and should be complementary, but not be the same material. And the same on the back end, that you got the course and then the membership would be the next logical step to help continue that journey of support. But actually what he's saying is it should be the same topic and it should be the implementation, the support and implementation of the course topic. So I think that was very helpful. And I think it's also encouraging how he said that it's not about providing more and more content, which as teachers we're often wanting to do. We just want to provide all the content and share everything that we have. But it's not about that. It's about helping people implement and to make progress. And I think that can take the pressure off and make it not such a overwhelming prospect to start a membership, because it's not about being on a content treadmill. It's about helping our students get results. And ultimately, when we see our students get results, that's very fulfilling for us. And it also gives us those stories that we can then share to encourage more people to get their own results as well and see a lot more people get the transformation that they're looking for. So I would love to know in the comments what your biggest takeaway was and what you plan to implement this week as a result as well. Okay, so let's dive into today's tip, which is what to do with your hands on camera. Do you have them in screen and waving around a lot? Do you keep them off screen to minimize movement? What is the best option? Well, here are a couple of things to keep in mind. If your hands are going to be on screen, you want to make sure that you're not making any repetitive movements, because that's just going to get really annoying to watch. And this actually applies not to just your hands, but your whole body. So for example, if you're standing up and you're kind of rocking from side to side, that will be very distracting. Or maybe you're like now, I'm sitting on a swivel chair and you're just swinging it back and forth so that your whole body isn't still. This can be really distracting to your audience. So you really want to avoid anything along these lines, whether it's with your hands or with your body as a whole. Now, if you're going to be keeping your hands out of frame so that you don't have to worry about them at all, you're going to want to tighten up your shot so that it's more like a chest up shot, so that you still have the freedom to gesture out of frame. This can actually be really good because it gives you some movement in your upper body without a lot of the gesturing distraction on screen. Now, if you like to keep your hands in frame, you will probably be best off with a wider shot. So that would be like waist up or wider, so that you can gesture freely within the frame. Now, if you use a closer angle, you're just going to want to be mindful of keeping your gestures within the frame so that they're making sense to your audience. Because if you're gesturing out of frame, like I'm right now, it's like, what are you doing with your hands? What are you looking at? What are you pointing at? We don't know. So just keep that in mind, that you want to keep your gestures within the frame itself. Another thing to be aware of is that you want your hands to stay close to your body as you are gesturing, because if you gesture out towards the camera, then your hands are going to be looking rather large, and they can be, again, a lot more distracting than if you're keeping them closer to your body. So just keep that in mind as well. So the next time you're on camera and you're not sure what to do with your hands, hopefully these tips will help. Now, if you would like your questions answered on the show, make sure you join the Facebook group Online Course Creators Using Video, and you can post on the questions thread in the announcements section, and I will aim to either answer it directly or on this show at some point. Now, as course creators, there's a lot that makes our business run effectively. So I like to recommend some of my favorite things as a course creator business owner. And today's recommendation is Genius CRM. So now, trying to break through the noise on social media can be tough, and sending out private DMs can be really time consuming. So often those who use that method resort to spammy messages rather than making genuine connections, which none of us really like, and it doesn't really work that effectively. So Genius takes a lot of the workload off when it comes to sending messages and enables you to make genuine connections without it taking up so much of your time, so that you can focus on other important parts of your business and still make genuine connections via DM. So it's basically partly automated. So you can, send out initial conversation starter messages to each person while you're doing other things. And then you can also choose the keywords that you want to target. So for example, if you're specifically wanting to target copywriters or owners or digital marketers or whatever is relevant to you. And then when people respond to that initial message, you can engage in genuine conversation. However, as you do that, you will notice patterns of questions that come up, and you can create canned responses so that when you get asked certain questions like, what do you do? Or how are things going? You don't have to type it out each time, which is a great time saver because you can just get the canned response, put it in there, and you're answering that genuine question very specifically without having to write it out all the time, which is great. The other aspect of the software is that you can keep track of all of your connections in a CRM that is directly connected to your Facebook Messenger. So you can color code each person with a label and immediately see who you need to follow up with and who comes under whichever label that you've created. So you might have a label for those who are interested, or follow up, or not interested, or whatever it might be. Basically, everything is customizable to your business. So you just use whatever labels are most relevant to you. But if you are wanting to make connections to get people into your Facebook group, onto your email list, purchase a course or some coaching, or whatever it is that would be your specific goal, this is a great way to make genuine connections with people and without it taking up all of your time. So if you're interested in checking this out, I recommend checking out the link in the description below for a free trial and see what you think. Okay, so before I wrap up, let's do a quick recap. First of all, you heard from Stu McLaren on the topic of memberships and how this might be a good way for you to add extra revenue to your course business. Today's tip was on what to do with your hands when you're on camera. My recommended tool this week is Genius CRM. And to wrap this up, the action step I encourage you to take between now and the next show is to take advantage of Stu McLaren's free training on membership sites so that you can determine whether this would be a good fit for you and your audience. And I will leave the link for that in the description below. And next week, I'm going to be interviewing Ryan Ellis on the topic of the course creation process as a whole, and he delivers some really great value, so be sure to subscribe if you haven't already so you don't miss that episode. And thank you for tuning into the Recognized Expert Show. For access to any of the resources mentioned in this episode, be sure to check out the show notes on the YouTube version of this show, which can be found at youtube.com/Demelza Marie. And if you found this show helpful, I would love for you to share it with others who may also find it helpful. And I will